It's time for week 14 of NFL football, and the question on everyone's mind is, can it get any crazier than what we saw in week 13? The scriptwriters were definitely on one when deciding those outcomes. There were upsets and wacky games all over the place. The ensuing chaos led to a 9-7 record with my predictions on the week. But now the question becomes, how did the scriptwriters manage to top the craziness that was week 13? Today we're going to speculate on that with a brief breakdown preview and my predictions of all the matches to come. And we start things off on Thursday Night Football, where the Dallas Cowboys are taking on the Detroit Lions. Right after Thanksgiving, they're getting back into the fray on another Thursday matchup. This is a rematch of last year where Detroit absolutely killed Dallas. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit since then. Detroit have been very inconsistent. They've been dropping a lot of games throughout the season, while the Cowboys, on the other hand, are starting to get hot. That Eagles game awoke something in them because they've been playing out of their minds the last few weeks. Beating the Eagles and the Chiefs back-to-back has put them in a great position to potentially run the table and maybe end up being a playoff team. They're still playing from behind. It's going to take a big-time effort and a little bit of luck if they want to make it through, but with them beating the Eagles and KC, I don't see why they couldn't beat the Lions as well. This is a very winnable matchup. However, there are indicators that would suggest that this should be Detroit's game to win. They're definitely the more talented team overall. The Cowboys are not nearly as good on the road as they are at home, and the Lions usually don't lose 2 in a row ever since becoming a successful team in the Dan Campbell era. A lot of areas would suggest that you should be taking the Lions, but I'm actually going to go with the Cowboys to win this football game. I think they're incredibly hot right now. Their offense is humming, and unfortunately for the Lions, they've just been a very inconsistent football team. They have not looked that great in the last handful of weeks to me. The offense has been up and down, and more importantly, their secondary has been exposed. First, it was against the crappy Giants with Jameis, but now more recently, Jordan Love, who kind of still has a somewhat injured shoulder, mind you. These teams are finding ways to get big chunk plays against the Lions. Lots of broken plays downfield through the air, and that's not what you want to hear going up against this lethal Dallas pass attack, which is genuinely the scariest in the NFL as of right now. Dak has really found his stride with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens out there, and I just don't love that for this Detroit team, who have been struggling as of late. I think this game means a lot more to the Cowboys, and they're going to find a way to get some revenge from last year. I'm taking the Cowboys. I think right now they are a better team. Peeking over to Sunday, we're starting with the Seattle Seahawks versus the Atlanta Falcons, and man, it's all over but the cry now for Atlanta fans. They could not afford to lose that game to the Jets, but they found a way to do it. Falcons gonna Falcon. Their season is now most definitely over at this point, in my opinion. And that's because they're playing the Seahawks next, who have genuinely been a solid team this year. They've been in basically every game they have played, win or loss. Their defense is absolutely insane, and I know they're gonna make Kirk Cousins struggle. Kirk hasn't looked that bad the last couple of weeks, but you know what that means with how he's playing this late into his career. He's overdue for a terrible game where he's going to throw the interceptions and get sacked, and that's what's going to happen here against the Seahawks. You know the Falcons may have just quit after losing a game they definitely should not have lost, so I'm taking the Seahawks for sure. There's levels to this thing, and they are a way, way better football team. Then we have more of an interesting matchup, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills. Funny enough, recently this game got flexed out of the 4 p.m. slot, and now I bet the NFL is wishing they kept it in the 4 p.m. slot, because Joe Burrow returned on Thanksgiving and the Bengals were absolutely electric with him. I don't know if he inspired those guys to play better or what, but the defense was making stops. They were scoring at will. Even if it was just field goals, they were constantly getting into a scoring position. The Bengals seem like they might actually be back. I don't want to overrate it too much because the Ravens haven't been playing that great, but there actually is an avenue for the Bengals to still be a playoff team. They've been doing a lot of losing as of late, so this one means something to them. And for the Buffalo Bills, I mean, they're at home in this game, which is a big-time advantage for them, but they haven't been the most consistent team in the world either. The Bengals are finally starting to string it together, while the Bills have just been on for the ride. I didn't love how they played in that Pittsburgh game. They won it, but I think that's more of an indictment on Pittsburgh and how bad of a football team they are. this is going to be a big challenge, and I could see this game going either way. And the big reason for that is if you look at the season as a whole, both of these teams typically give up a lot of points. We could be headed towards shootout territory for sure in this game. But the thing is, I feel the Bengals defense has actually been stepping up relatively well the last couple of weeks. We saw them give New England a challenge. They made Lamar and Baltimore look like complete and utter garbage out there. They're starting to find their second win. They're forcing turnovers, and I think that's pretty favorable against a Buffalo team that's been making a lot of mistakes as of late. I think against a feisty Bengals team that has their season on the line, they're going to end up losing this game. They're going to get punched in the jaw. That's just the type of season it has been for the Buffalo Bills. Very inconsistent. It's clearly the year of the Patriots in the AFC East, and they're going to lose another tough game here. I am picking the Bengals to win. I think their defense gets a critical stop, and Joe Burrow does just enough to get his team over the finish line. They can beat this Buffalo team. They just need a tiny bit of help, and I truly do believe they're going to get it. There's still something to play for in the AFC North. Go and get it, Bengals. And then it's the Titans versus the Browns. Obviously not much at stake here, but it is interesting. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, they are peers. We've seen them on social media plenty of times. Going into the draft process this year, they're seen as like the top two quarterbacks, at least for a while at the time. They're rivals. They try and make each other better. They're talking trash to each other. Both of these guys are going to want to win this game. And I think as a result, Tennessee may end up playing one of their better games on the year. However, I'm not going to trust Tennessee to win this game. They're a one-win football team for a reason. They're just not trustworthy at all. They're very inconsistent. They can't block for Cam Ward. Their defense usually cannot get stops, and I just don't see how they're going to move the ball effectively with so little weapons against that dangerous Browns defense. This Browns defense has destroyed some really good teams this year. So imagine what they're going to do to the crappy Tennessee Titans. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to have to do that much. I think so long as he keeps the ball out of harm's way and they can score a couple of times, that will be enough to beat the Tennessee Titans. They are outclassed in this game. And then you've got the Commanders versus the Vikings. This one is pretty intriguing. The Commanders, they're looking to potentially get Jaden Daniels back into the fray. I've heard there's a possibility he could play. We'll probably find out later in the week. But whether they have him or they don't, the Commanders are starting to show some fight. That game against the Broncos was really, really close. The best game Marcus Mariota has played all year, and now he's going to have opportunities likely against a Vikings offense that is incredibly dysfunctional. Minnesota's at home. Their defense is super aggressive, and they're probably going to get to Mariota early in this game, but it may not matter if the Vikings can't move the football. Even with J.J. McCarthy coming back to play, that doesn't exactly inspire confidence in you. He's been the worst starting quarterback in the league, arguably. He really has been that terrible. Everyone on that offense is frustrated. They're not getting fed. He's not keeping his eyes downfield. He's being inaccurate, making poor decisions. I don't see how that's going to change after 1 week of being in concussion protocol. Every once in a while, this Vikings team surprises you. But right now, I think with the season clearly being over, that they're going to quit. And the Commanders are showing me they're not quitting. They've been fighting against some decent teams. So whether it's Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota, I think I'm going to pick the Commanders to win. The Vikings just feel so dejected to me, and I want to avoid them at all costs. Next up, an AFC East divisional game between the Dolphins and the Jets. Miami, they're on a bit of a win streak right now. They've won 3 games in a row. Their season isn't totally over. They're on the outside looking in of making the playoffs. It doesn't look good, but you at least have a chance, so there's something to play for. And what better way to continue the streak than against the Jets, right? The crappy Jets? Well, I'm not so sure. It may not be that easy. The Jets have been showing some fight in the last several weeks. Sometimes it just comes in spurts, but they're showing they have what it takes to win. They're making a lot less of the mistakes that costed them early in the year. The penalties, they're not coming about as much. The run game looks pretty good. And with Tyrod Taylor in there, at least they're somewhat competent passing the football. At least they're throwing the football forward rather than whatever the hell it was with Justin Fields out there. Don't love how they've been playing by any means, but I like it a lot more than earlier in the year. And the Dolphins, they are very vulnerable to an upset like this for a couple of reasons. One, even though they've been on a win streak, the last couple of games have been anything but pretty. You beat the Saints and you beat the Commanders by 1 score each. That doesn't exactly make you feel that great about them, just knowing how those two teams have been performing this season. And now they're playing the Jets, who know them really well. They're on the road, mind you, as well. They're going to MetLife in December when it's cold. It's probably going to be windy. I heard it might rain in this game as well, potentially. I think all of that has the making of a Jets win, a surprise Jets win over the Miami Dolphins. I think so long as the Jets can somewhat contain Achane in this game, they're going to take it. This team is sick and tired of losing, just like with the Giants, but unlike the Giants, they're actually going to do something about it. You can tell there's still a fiery spirit in them, and they're going to make sure that the Dolphins suffer. I got the New York Jets winning this game. You can't trust the Dolphins in December in the cold. Next up, NFC South divisional game, the New Orleans Saints versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs, I'm impressed. Baker Mayfield, through a shoulder injury, did just enough to beat the Arizona Cardinals. That game was uncomfortably close, and you got to shout out their defense for making the stops when they did, but they're keeping their dreams alive of being the top team in the NFC South, and now they have a chance to build upon that with a good divisional record in a game against the New Orleans Saints, who are easily one of the worst teams in the league. The Saints, they're just getting figured out again, unfortunately. Tyler Shuck, it took a week or two, but teams understand what they got to do to deny that guy. Alvin Kamara's banged up as well, so the run game's not in the best situation, while the Buccaneers are starting to get a little bit more healthy. They welcomed back Bucky Irving last week, and he immediately was a big-time contributor, and I expect the same thing to happen against a Saints team that has nothing to play for. Bucs buy whatever they want. Next up, one of the biggest games of the week, the Colts versus the Jaguars, a huge game in the AFC South. It could very well decide who ends up winning this division. Because of their recent loss to the Texans, the Colts have officially surrendered their lead in the AFC South, and now it is the Jags who are first place because of the tiebreaker. Must-win game for both teams here, and you could argue that the Colts need this one a lot more and that they're overdue for a victory after losing the last two in a row, but I'm not so sure at this point. They've cooled down significantly in the last month or so after their red-hot start to the year. Teams are starting to get a better read on what they need to do, just go heavy on stopping the run, and then everything else seems to line up in place, but also, Daniel Jones is playing through a fractured fibula, and clearly, especially in the last couple of weeks, he's looked very, very uncomfortable. He's in a good deal of pain. I have a lot of respect for him for going out there and playing through that, toughing it out for the sake of his football team, but it's affecting his mobility, and that usually is one of Daniel Jones' biggest strengths, to extend plays, get outside the pocket. He's kind of a sitting duck out there at this point, and against that Jags pass rush, that ferocious Jags pass rush, that feels like a problem to me. The Jags have been playing pretty well as of late. I like the way their offense is moving. I think the Colts are going to play from behind in this one, and that's going to lead to them not being able to run the football as much, and that will lead to a Jaguars victory. And lastly, in the early afternoon portion of the week is the Ravens versus the Steelers, an AFC North divisional battle, and oh god, I don't trust either of these football teams. They both haven't looked anywhere near where they should be. It's just been a disaster for both of them. The Ravens, even with Lamar's return, they've been very up and down offensively. That Bengals game is a prime example of it. Lamar clearly isn't totally healthy. He looks uncomfortable out there, and the offense is suffering as a result. They're not moving the ball effectively, super duper inconsistent, and that could lead to a loss on basically any given week after what we saw in the Bengals game, who don't even have a good defense. Lots of uncharacteristic weird turnovers by this Baltimore Ravens team, and against the weird Steelers, that does scare me quite a bit. Now, the only benefit for Baltimore is the Steelers suck probably even more. Aaron Rodgers and that offense can't do anything. And unfortunately, unlike previous years, their defense isn't there to bail them out. The D just hasn't been there for Pittsburgh, so they just feel like a bad football team. It's kind of crazy they're in a position to still potentially make the playoffs and win their division. They definitely don't deserve it. I don't like where the Steelers team is headed at all, so I think I'm reluctantly going to pick the Ravens to win. I'm expecting a very ugly and boring football game, But the Ravens just have so much to play for. They have more weapons. It's more likely they get things right than the Pittsburgh Steelers upsetting them. So I'm going to reluctantly pick the Ravens to win this football game. But you know what will not be difficult to make a decision on? The Broncos versus the Raiders. This should be Denver all day, every day. They beat the Raiders last time. It was a pretty ugly game, but they've lived rent-free in the Raiders' heads for a couple of years now at this point. The Raiders feel pretty done. They're playing like garbage, and their offensive line just can't block. Geno's taking a lot of sacks every game. There should be turnovers aplenty against that Denver pass rush, so it should be a Broncos win. But I will say, I don't feel totally great about Denver. I don't think anyone should. They just keep barely squeaking out wins, no matter who the opponent is. Not the best sign heading into the playoffs, in my opinion, but bare minimum, they should be taking care of the Raiders, who have long since been eliminated from the playoff contention. Next up, maybe game of the week, the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. A huge game to decide the NFC North, potentially. Right now, Chicago sit at first place in their division and have the number 1 seed in the NFC. But if they were to lose this game, I believe I saw somewhere they could go from the 1 seed all the way down to 7. So they're not out of the woods yet. They need to build some kind of cushion between them and the Green Bay Packers if they want to stay on top. But obviously, a lot easier said than done here. The Packers, they're starting to find their second win. They're feeling great, maybe even at an all-time high after beating Detroit on Thanksgiving and sweeping the season series against them. That is massive for their confidence. They haven't done that in a very long time. It's been like 5 years or so since the last time they swept Detroit in the season series. I think the Pack offense is starting to find some life. Jordan Love is starting to find open guys downfield more. And Micah Parsons, he's been finding the quarterback quite a bit. Packers, they're in a great position to win this game at home. They should be the favorites. And if you look back historically over the last 10 years, let's say, it's basically all Green Bay. The Bears have won like 2 of those matchups. They just don't do well against this team. The Packers practically own them. But you know, this year, it's been a lot different compared to others. There's been a lot of the new guard taking over, a lot of surprises, records that are meant to be broken. So I kind of feel like I should go with the Bears. I should back Chicago in this game to win in an upset on the road. It feels like they shouldn't win. They've been barely scraping by every single week, but they continue to find ways to win, just like the Denver Broncos. They have destroyed me a couple of times this season by doubting them in key games. They continue to prove me wrong, so I think it's time that I back them. The Green Bay Packers may be at an all-time high, but the Bears are too. They're playing well under their new coach. They're running the ball effectively, which the Packers have shown to be inconsistent with stopping. And they beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Friday, on Black Friday. That was a pretty big win, and clearly it did a lot for their confidence. So I'm going to back the Bears to win this football game. They've kind of been the team of destiny this year. It's been a wacky season, so what better way than to continue that? Concluding the late afternoon portion of the games is the Arizona Cardinals versus the LA Rams. The Rams, they were let down big time last week against the Carolina Panthers. It was a big time upset where they just could not get the stops against Bryce Young when needed. Plus, Matt Stafford was uncharacteristically bad with a couple of turnovers. That was an off game for the LA Rams, and maybe that could continue against a Cards team who, yes, have 3 wins, but have been undeniably scrappy. They've been in a ton of football games, a ton of games in which they have lost by 1 possession. It seems like the offense is moving a lot better with Jacoby Brissett since he took over the game. They're very pass heavy, and it seems to be working out. Maybe they could take away something from that Panthers game, but at the end of the day, the Rams have consistently been one of the best teams in the league. Even some of the great teams have had off moments this year, and I'm sure the Rams are going to find a way to get back into the W column. They're significantly more talented. They're trying to fight for the 1 seed in the NFC. There's too much on the line. Cards always find ways to lose, so this should be a Rams W. Looking into Sunday night, this could be the end of the Kansas City Chiefs as we know them, as they're playing the Houston Texans. The Chiefs are 500. They lost a tough game to Dallas, and now their playoff hopes are severely in jeopardy. They pretty much have to play perfect the rest of the way if they want to make it through. And this is not an ideal situation to start it off in. A very hungry Texans team who have fought their way back from a bad start and now have a chance at making the playoffs, alongside a very dangerous ferocious defense. When Mahomes has been pressured, it's been bad news. He's had to make all the plays because they don't have any type of run game. This is a game that the Texans could absolutely, positively win. I'm telling you, if the Texans can get after Mahomes and the Houston offense can move the ball at least a little bit effectively each quarter, they're going to edge out an ugly win in my opinion, but I'm just not sure if I trust them to make it happen. KC have had Houston's number, and they are at home as well, and they're going to be playing with a lot of desperation. A team that's lost one game at home with their playoff hopes on the line, essentially, makes me think that the Chiefs should be edging out a tough victory. Maybe the refs bail them out. Maybe there's some more Mahomes magic. It's going to be a tough one because you know what's going to happen. It's going to be that Texans pass rush versus Mahomes, who throws the ball like 50 times because they have no run game to speak of. This is going to be a tough game, and it's going to be very telling of what this Chiefs team is truly capable of. But I think because they're at home, just knowing the stakes, I'm going to back them this one last time. But if they lose this one, I think we might have to say that it's officially over. And finally, on Monday night, it's going to be the LA Chargers hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. A very weird game here, because I don't have a ton of faith in the LA Chargers. They're a very banged up football team. Justin Herbert literally just fractured his non-throwing hand, and who the hell knows how that's going to affect him. He plans to play, but I don't know if that's going to lead to a lot of discomfort that throws him off of his game. It's just a weird situation for the Chargers to be in. But at the same time, they may actually be able to win this football game. The Philadelphia Eagles, the last couple of weeks, have looked horrendous. The Dallas game, the Chicago game, I mean, even before that, if you look at the Detroit match, the Green Bay match, the Eagles haven't played a good quality game of football in a month. And don't get me wrong, this should be the easiest game they've played since that matchup against the Giants back at the end of October. But the problem is that they're starting to have some really weird vibes to them. It reminds me a lot of the 2023 season where they started off good, barely scraping by in a lot of games, but then you hit the mid to late point in the season and it all falls apart and the frustrations all start to pour out. This team is mentally weak. I'm just going to flat out say it. When they don't win, things just don't go their way. It's very strange to watch. When they go on these losing streaks, you just know things are going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. That play calling is just terrible. I mean, their offensive coordinator literally had his house get egged the other day, which is absolutely uncalled for and insane, but it goes to show just how bad it has been with that Philly offense. They can't run the ball anymore for whatever reason. Jalen Hurts doesn't like to take off with it anymore, so they're very one-dimensional with what they're trying to do, just trying to feed A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and that's just not enough to win. That's not Eagles football, and I'm worried that's going to continue. So long as they have that guy calling plays for them, why wouldn't that continue? This is a scary moment for Philly. They're on the road. It seems like things are starting to fall apart. They've got to win this game, but I don't think I'm going to pick them. I'm jumping on the Philly hate train. It seems like they're finally starting to get exposed as the frauds they are, and it's time for that losing streak to continue and for things to be like 2023. The championship hangover is here. They're not going to move the ball well against the Jim Harbaugh offense, and last week we saw what you can do running the football against this Philly team. The Bears had almost 300 yards of rushing against them, and the Chargers may be getting Omarion Hampton back as well. So I think the Chargers are going to come in with a good game plan. They're going to frustrate the Eagles early on. They're going to take them out, and they're going to win a big football game that they probably shouldn't be winning. Give me the LA Chargers to beat the fraud, frustrated Eagles. Either way, big moment for this Philly team. Make or break depending on the win or loss in this situation. But that's going to do it for me in this one. Let me know what you think of my predictions and who you have winning this week down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more NFL predictions every single week.